Hello everybody, welcome to the stream guys. Today we're going to cover the new skill tree changes that they have announced on July 6th, 2017. So Thomas Blair announced these functional and aesthetic changes to the skill tree. So I'll kind of, gloss over these and kind of discuss what we're being presented with here. So they have some mechanical and visualization changes to the skill system brewing in the background for many months, and they're about to release these changes. So currently the skill system, for those who don't know how that works, is you have essentially a skill tree, a generic skill tree, and when you level them, you get, how do I say, various, let's just say on a scale of 1 to 100, you make progress up to that. But you get dinged every %, let's just say, that you complete. So you're hearing dings and you get almost like a notification shade, right? So their goal initially was, that it would seem rewarding when we're being notified of these, upgrades, but it didn't seem noticeable. And they kind of mentioned that like their goal is to make it noticeable, keyword noticeable, and they felt like it just wasn't. So not only did they update how it worked, they kind of additionally updated how tooltips kind of interact, how you're being presented information and how they look, things like that. So first, one of the more noticeable changes is obviously the frame around the icon, and you'll notice these kind of progression pips. You can see that there's 5 kind of gems or 5 cells here that can be shaded in. So you can see down here you have 3 out of 5 shaded in, but you can clearly see that there are different frames too, and the frames do signify something, and the pip completion does signify something. So each of these slots kind of represent a 5th of progression, right? So if you were to convert that to percentage, a 5th is 20%. So that'd be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100%. And so that's what that represents. Now, once you've completed all 5, aka 100% of something, you'll be shown some type of frame. And they mentioned that a little bit later, but I figured we'd address that now. And you can see here, this is clearly 20, 40, 60% complete. You don't quite get the frame yet, and there's a reason for presenting it that way, and there's a reason for why they don't have the frame on all the time. So excuse me. So now only when you've completed a full pip, or 20%, or 20% of the progress of the entirety, you'll get a notification for each pip. So then when you do check, and when you do gain that stat, you'll notice it a little bit more, rather than them constantly updating your character with very minimal fractions of that gain. You'll actually only be notified and rewarded of these gains when you see the notification or hear the ding, right? So for example, they use an example of I guess you'll see a pretty good example when they show you the tooltips, right? So I guess we'll wait to talk about that. So now they talk about the build up, how each pip is earned. We kind of talked about that. In their example, they say, oh, so if a skill grants 25 attack power and you have 1 pip trained, you would have +5 attack power. Because once again, 1/5 or 20% of 25 equals 5. So if you would imagine each of these represents 5 attack, you would get 5, 10, 15 if this was the case. And then once you complete it, you would have had unlocked 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 attack power, which is what their example states. So they just go about, describing that gaining the second pop will grant another 5% for a total of 10. So if you had 1, it would be 5 attack power. Second one would be 5 plus another 5, that would be 10 total, right? So you kind of get the idea. Removal prerequisites. This is pretty cool. So once you have started and completed a pip, 20% of something, you can see the bar appear, which means that you meet the prerequisite to start to advance your skill tree. Meaning you no longer have to complete this all the way to completion to get this fancy frame before you can move on to the next, which is how it currently works. So for example, if I have skill A and I want to get to skill B, I have to level up all of skill A to get to skill B. In this new revision or iteration that they're doing with the skill tree, all you have to do is level up 1/5 of skill A to unlock access to skill B. However, they mentioned that there are different frames that will mean different things. So some frames, as we'll discuss a little bit later, mean that you have to meet multiple prerequisites before you can select the skill tree. So you have to, you have to start and complete a pip in maybe A sub 1 and A sub 2, or A and B, before you can unlock C. Does that make sense? So we'll kind of touch base on that a little bit later. So to illustrate this, they mentioned they have a solid line connecting into the skill, and 5 empty pips below the skill icon means that you can now start training that new skill. So we have tooltips, and you can see at the bottom of these sections, right, these cards that come up. Once you hover over something, you'll get these cards that come up, and you can press left control to see more information, and that kind of just expands the box, right, for more detailed information. And you can hover off of it too, or you can, I'm assuming, press left control again to collapse it. But this is kind of nice. This is kind of showing you, obviously, amazing pick. You get a total, this is what you would get total. Currently, you've unlocked 6% digging. The next pip will represent 8%, which is this, and the total of 10% complete. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? Divided into 2/5. Once again, 10 divided by 5, that'd be 2. Each of these represents 2%. Currently, they have 2, 4, 6%, which makes sense, which is how that's represented. So it seems a little bit more clear to me as a user how this is currently working, which is great, because then I don't have to wonder, or I don't have to see this observable like blue ring around what I'm training to kind of guess where I'm at, gauge where I'm at. And you can kind of see their sample of what the overall tree will look. You can clearly see here that they have this complete, they've unlocked this, they have this complete, they've unlocked this. I wish they would have shown an incomplete one. For example, if you've completed 1 pip on this paw icon, it would unlock all 3 of these, and then you can choose which way you want to navigate or how you want to navigate through that, which is pretty cool. And you can see here that these frames represent skills that have been fully completed, which means all 5 of those little slots have been filled. All 5 of the pips have been filled. They mentioned that the iconography surrounding the skills to make it more readable at a glance, but also the frame around the icon also serves a function. So they say vertical hexagonal frames mean that you can reach this skill by training any of the parent skills. So for example, if this one right here was a vertical hexagon, vertical hexagon frame, that means any one of these can be trained to access this. But if it's a horizontal frame, like this, horizontal hexagonal frame, that means that you can only reach this skill by training all. So that means in order for you to get to this one, because it's horizontal, you need to train both of these or at least start training both of these, and at least complete 1 pip before you could start this. Now likewise with this, since this is a horizontal frame around this one, you would need to at least complete a pip in each one of these before you would gain access to start training this, right? This kind of opens up more options. They kind of mentioned that now you can partially train this one in advance and complete this one, or maybe you want to, you know, this means you have to allocate at least 1 pip or time to complete at least 1 pip for this, which is nice that they don't require you to complete the whole thing to progress. I kind of like that way. It's a little bit more fluid, a little bit more flexibility, and kind of now they're kind of forced to put a little bit more weight on some of the earlier skills to make it more valuable, so people do kind of, you know, allocate some time for that. So test server will have separate instances of skill trees for each account. To jumpstart things, we've copied the data from previous, so they don't plan to necessarily clear everything. They do plan on rearranging, and certain things might be removed because they're shifting from from archetypes to races and class, which means that the skill tree will need to change because they're not supporting archetypes anymore. And it would also mean that they're rearranging certain skills. But if the skill does exist in the new tree and you've already completed it, they're going to try to migrate your information over to the new tree. And that's pretty much it. So I guess to go back on my opinions of these changes, I think it's a lot of functional, like this is design change. So to me, design is how it works than how it looks, right? So how it works, I think this is a little bit more clear. I really enjoy it. I really like it. And you know, how does it look? I think it looks fine. I mean, it's a skill tree, right? I think obviously this looks fine. This is very clear. Obviously they're going to polish it for launch, but this is a pretty good step to get it polished. I knew that like the circular icons and the blue ring around it was kind of basic, and that they were planning to update that once they had some time. Obviously some of the menus, I guess my gripe for navigating around the skill tree has always been, you know, navigation isn't always the best. Like when you start getting into sub branches, or you know, like child trees and child of child trees, things like that, it's, you know, they don't even include a back button. It's a lot of just going back home into the very top parent tree, which kind of bothered me. So if I go into tree A and I click on whatever, they have an option to see tree B nested in tree A, and I click on tree B, I can't click back to tree A. I have to actually go all the way up to like menu 0 to select tree A and then get back into that. So that's what I kind of mean. They still have quirks with navigation. I guess that's my bit of feedback for them. I wish they would spend some time in updating that too. I hope they do. But this is assuming that they still want to use nested trees. I'm not quite sure. So if they do use nested trees, I hope that they do update the navigation to be a little bit more intuitive and a little bit more smooth. I do like the tooltips. I do like what they have in here. I don't know. Color palettes are fine to me for now. I think icons could be a little bit more polished, but take this with a grain of salt, guys. It's pre-alpha. I don't expect them to have like final art assets in place or final graphics in place, but functionality wise, I think it's coming along, and I think this is a little bit more clear, and hopefully their goal is to make it more impactful. I don't have a comment on that, and I don't have feedback on that until I get to play with it. So that's the big thing, right? I guess one of the changes I didn't get a chance to discuss is VIP versus non-VIP. So let me preface by saying this. Artcraft Entertainment is a company, and they need to be profitable to stay around and to continue updating the game. That being said, one of the ways they can make money is by offering VIP services. These are going to be convenience services for you. And now there have been some discussion, even from some major YouTubers, about, you know, whether or not this feels like pay to win or whether or not they think it's pay to win. Everybody kind of sees a different perspective on it. So I'm not going to comment on whether I think that's pay to win or not. I think there is an advantage, you know, to people who have VIP accounts, as in they don't have to access the menu on off time. in real time, and they don't have to update and select skill trees. However, you know, what does that mean? That means that it's more convenient for them to level up, and it's going to be smoother and probably more efficient and faster for them to level up skills so they can be more skillful. So can these changes be noticeable over time? Yes, they can. And that's probably why people think it's, you know, it feels pay to win in that sense. But some people say, you know, like if they spend enough time and they actually play it and are more proactive with their account, a lot of times this isn't an issue, because if you're playing and you're on and you hear a ding, or you know, are mindful of when you need to update it, I think you can kind of mitigate your losses, right? So I don't foresee this being an issue from my perspective, because I plan on being a little bit more active once the game launches. And by active, I mean I'll play to the capacity I'm able to play while I have free time, right? I do have a family and a job, so I'm not no-lifing this by any means, but I think I'm just average Joe. I'm playing, you know, I'm playing, I don't want to say casually, but I don't want to say like super competitively, but I am playing fairly competitively. I'm playing in a fairly competitive guild, so I think it's fair to say that I'm going to be fairly proactive. I'm going to be very proactive with managing my skill tree and things like that. And I think most people, you can expect that, because as you know, Crowfall isn't exactly like a very casual MMO that you just ease into and you just casually play once in a while. It's going to require some attention, you know, and some dedication if you really want to succeed. And you know, it's a big emphasis on individual team contributions, right? So that's great. I don't know, I think that's pretty much it. They included a TLDR section down here, which is basically the summary of everything we've covered, right? 5 pip stats on each pip, fewer but more impactful rewards on each ding, and queuing for VIPs, fancy iconography. Yeah, we've kind of covered that. So this is pretty exciting, little bit of news, the most recent news they've kind of released. You know, I mentioned in my previous video, there's been kind of content drought, which a lot of the people that I usually play with have been feeling, but hopefully they'll push out an update and everybody will kind of be refreshed with new content, kind of get a little bit rested over the holiday week, and so we're ready to get back into things and test out some other stuff. But that'll be great. Thank you everybody for swinging by. Thank you for the support. I appreciate you guys. Have a good night, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.